A Story of Three Trees, told by Stephen Robinson, illustrated by Dave Henderson. Long ago, three trees stood on a wind-swept hillside overlooking a vale of wildflowers. One was a gentle almond tree long past its fruit-bearing years. One was a sturdy oak with wide-reaching branches shaped by soft breezes and strong gales, and one was a mighty cedar, tall and proud. The trees had watched over the vale for many years, braving the storms of summer, sleeping through snows of winter. They had been planted more than 100 years before. Three children had carried three saplings up that wind-swept hill, and each child dug a hole and placed a tree in the ground, then covered it with soil, and each child was filled with wonder and hope for the tree and for their future. The first child patted down the earth and said, "Dear God, I pray that this almond tree blooms early every spring, bringing joy and cheer. I pray that it bears sweet almonds, and I pray that someday its beautiful wood is carved into a delicate box to hold a precious treasure." The second child tapped his foot around the base of his sapling and said, "God, I pray that this little oak tree will grow to have a strong heart and spreading branches to protect the little almond tree. I pray that someday its wood will be used to build a royal ship bearing a king." The third child listened to the others and then slowly took his place alongside his little trees, and the other two children stepped back, giving him his space and time. "I hope and dream," he said quietly, "that this small tree will grow and grow and grow until it reaches the clouds and points skyward toward God. I pray that all who stand here in the years to come will follow its branches into the heavens and feel that God is present and always watching over them." As the tree grew, they held the words of the three children in their hearts and hoped that someday their prayers would be answered. And it came to be that one morning a group of woodsmen climbed to the knoll where the trees stood, and the woodsmen saw what fine trees they were. "What, the wood of these trees could be useful," they said. The first woodsman looked over the gnarled, aged almond tree. "I will use this old wood to build a new feed trough for my cattle." The tree's heart was sad. It would not become a beautiful treasure box. The second woodsman raised his axe. "I will use this oak wood to make a fishing boat." And the great oak was felled, and he felt a loss. A fishing boat would never carry a king. And the third woodsman looked up at the tall, straight cedar tree. "Cedar is prized for burning offerings," he said. "I will store the lumber and wait for a good price." The majestic cedar fell with a heavy heart. No longer would he stand on the hill, pointing toward God for all to see. And so it was, a season later, 100 years after three small children had planted three small trees, that a young man and woman sought shelter in a stable. There the woman bore a baby boy, and she wrapped the baby and placed him on a bed of hay in a feed trough, a lowly manger. And a heavenly light shone through the stable window, wrapping the child in the manger in gold. "God is watching over this child," thought the heart of the almond tree. "I am a cradle, and in my arms I hold God's most precious treasure." 30 years after this, an old fishing boat carried several men across a large lake. One of the fishermen fell asleep to the gentle rocking of the water, and suddenly a violent wind blew in, and water started to fill the boat, and the terrified men woke the sleeping man. The man slowly stood and spread wide his arm. "Peace, be still," he said, and the wind ceased, and there was a great calm. And the men looked at each other. "What kind of man is this," they said, "that even the wind and sea obey him?" But the heart of the oak tree knew he was carrying the greatest of kings. All these years the fragrant cedar wood had lain stacked in a shed unnoticed, unneeded, until one day when rough hands picked up 2 large boards and carried them out to the city square. There they were fashioned into a huge cross, and the heavy cross was carried through a crowded street and up to a lonely hilltop. A quiet, wounded man was laid upon the cross, and the heart of the cedar could feel the pain of nails driven into its wood. And then the cross and the man were lifted high. "I am pointing again toward heaven," thought the cedar. "But God is not here, only cruelty, pain, and sorrow." But then the quiet man spoke. "Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do." And the heart of the great cedar was suddenly touched by a powerful understanding. Only the loving Spirit of God could pray such a prayer. And it knew that the cross and the holy man it bore would forever point the way to God. In God's time, in God's way, prayers were answered. 3 children smile down through heaven's window and know that this is true.